Famous British people who passed away in 1927. This is the second episode. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Jerome K. Jerome. He was born in May 1859 and he died in June 1927. His age was 68 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke. He was an English writer and humorist, best known for the comic travelogue Three Men in a Boat, 1889. Other works include the essay collections Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, 1886, and The Second Thought of an Idle Fellow, Three Men on a Bummel, a sequel to Three Men in a Boat, and several other novels. He continued to write fiction, non-fiction, and plays over the next few decades, though never with the same level of success. Known for his comedic and observational writing style. Frank Curzon. He was born in September 1868 and he died in July 1927. His age was 58 at the time of his death, and he died after a long illness. He was an English actor who became an important theatre manager, leasing the Royal Standard Theatre, Avenue Theatre, Crichton Theatre, Comedy Theatre, Prince of Wales Theatre, and Wyndham's Theatre, amongst others. He produced some of the most successful Edwardian musical comedies. He was involved in a number of legal disputes, and the most celebrated of which involved an audience member who refused to remove her hat. When Curzon prevented her from returning to her seat, she charged him with assault. Curzon won. Harry Anstey. He was born in July 1847 and he died in July 1927. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a metallurgist and gold prospector who led the prospecting expedition that discovered gold in the Yalgren, leading to the gold rush that established Western Australia's eastern goldfields. He was appointed government assayer in 1889. From 22 August 1893 until July 1894, he was nominated member of the Western Australian Legislative Council. Solomon Joseph Solomon. He was born in September 1860 and he died in July 1927. His age was 66 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British painter, a founding member of the New English Art Club, and member of the Royal Academy. His family was Jewish, and his sister, Lily Delisa Joseph, was also a painter. He made an important contribution to the development of camouflage in the First World War, working particularly on tree observation posts and arguing tirelessly for camouflage netting. He was listed as one of the early members of the newly formed Society of Graphic Art. Sir George Bonham. He was born in August 1847 and he died in July 1927. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British diplomat and ambassador to Serbia and Switzerland. He succeeded to the baronetcy at the age of 16 on the death of his father, the first baronet. He joined the diplomatic service in 1869 and served at the embassies in St. Petersburg, Vienna, Rome, Lisbon, Madrid, Paris, and The Hague. He was secretary of the embassy at Madrid. He was minister to Serbia and minister to Swiss Confederation. Sir Harry Johnston. He was born in June 1858 and he died in July 1927. His age was 69 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British explorer, botanist, artist, colonial administrator, and linguist who traveled widely across Africa to speak some of the languages spoken by the people on that continent. He published 40 books on subjects related to the continent of Africa and was one of the key players in the scramble for Africa that occurred at the end of the 19th century. Emily Polanyi. She was born in March 1881 and she died in July 1927. Her age was 46 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was an English stage actress with a considerable career in Australia, known for her stage presence and impactful performances. Her acting career began in London, following by work in companies touring in England and America, while on Broadway playing in Yes or No. She was offered a contract with Australian firm. Later she came back and again appeared on stage in England and America, where she died, never having returned to Australia. Edward B. Titchener. He was born in January 1867 and he died in August 1927. His age was 60 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was brain tumor. He was an English psychologist who studied under Wilhelm Wundt for several years. He is best known for creating his version of psychology that described the structure of the mind, structuralism. After becoming a professor at the Cornell University, he created the largest doctoral program at that time in the United States. His first graduate student, Margaret Floy Washburn, became the first woman to be granted a PhD in psychology in 1894. He established structural psychology as a discipline in the United States. Sir Ernest Hatch. He was born in April 1859 and he died in August 1927. His age was 68 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British politician who advocated for business-friendly policies and laws. He went into business as a wine merchant and in 1894 established Hatch, Mansfield and Company, working with James Mansfield, who became managing director. Hatch was an unsuccessful Conservative parliamentary candidate for the Gorton division of Lancashire at a by-election in 1889 and at a succeeding general election in 1892. On his third attempt in the 1895 election, he was elected as the Gorton's Member of Parliament. Henry Ward. He was born in 1852 and he died in September 1927. His age was 75 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British architect who designed many large public buildings in and around Hastings, East Sussex, some of which are listed buildings. Ward briefly worked for and under the guidance of architect Walter Liberty Vernon, and during the 50 years he worked in the town he designed buildings from his architectural practice at 8 Banks Buildings. Mary Webb. She was born in March 1881 and she died in October 1927. Her age was 46 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was an English romance novelist and poet of the early 20th century, whose work is set chiefly in the Shropshire countryside and among Shropshire characters and people whom she knew. Her novels have been successfully dramatized, most notably at the film Gone to Earth in 1950 by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, based on the novel of the same title. The novels are thought to have inspired the famous parody Cold Comfort Farm in 1932 by Stella Gibbons. Beatrice Green. She was born in October 1894 and she died in October 1927. Her age was 33 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was ulcerative colitis. She was a Welsh Labour activist who was a key figure in the 1926 United Kingdom general strike. At the subsequent miners' lockout, a highly regarded orator and writer, she became a leader in the Labour movement in South Wales and was a prominent member of the Labour Party in Monmouthshire. William Atwell. He was born in June 1861 and he died in June 1927. His age was 65 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a cricketer who played for Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club in England. He was a medium-pace bowler who was renowned for his extraordinary accuracy and economy on the many sticky or crumbling pitches encountered in his prime. Atwell could get on a great deal of spin so as to always beat the bat, whilst his accuracy would make slogging, the only way to make runs under such conditions, very difficult. He was the first person in Test history to be dismissed for a king pair. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.